I'm going to move to some more activist technologies. So these are all activist technologies, but I'm going to move to more some direct ones. I think one of the most important technologies that comes from the religious realm is something that in the Christian tradition we call servant leadership. And I think that servant leadership is often overlooked for the power that it has. I know that was one of the favorite principles for Martin Luther King. Everybody pays homage to the kings and the queens, but in the Christian tradition, the idea is that you give the honor to the servant, the person who's giving the most service. And taking that out of that strictly religious context, I think that a lot of what makes our society so negative is that we give all of the status to the people who do the most for themselves. And so you end up in a system where everybody is working to lift themselves up at the expense of everybody else. And I think that is a straight, direct line to what we're experiencing right now. It's a direct result of giving all the status to the most selfish people. And the most functional, the most loving, the most caring communities are the ones where the most status goes to the person who is giving the most to that community. It's interesting because religious communities can go either way. And you can go to a church or a mosque where the leader is really the biggest servant. But you can also go places where like it's gospel of prosperity and you know who the pastor is because they're the one riding the private jet. And so if there's one thing that we could do as a culture that I think would change everything, it would be to start giving the status to the biggest givers and to do that universally and not just the little pockets. Interestingly enough, I think one of the places that you sometimes see this being done right is certain pockets of the internet, which is not a place you would usually expect. Wikipedia is one of my big examples of community where the people who give the most to the community are the people who are celebrated most. Now, there are definitely biases. There are things that are promoted, things that are omitted, and there are definitely inaccuracies in it. But in general, it's a very good resource, and it's one that we can all benefit from, and it's one that is created through this model of the most status goes to the person who's giving the most. Stack Exchange or Stack Overflow, if anybody's familiar with that. It's one that's mainly available among programmers, but it's a place where people post answers to questions, and the best answer gets voted highest, and people compete really just for the status of being the most helpful person. Another technology, another activist spiritual technology that was beloved of Martin Luther King is nonviolence. And I think it's really important to talk about this one because I think it's often misunderstood. Nonviolence is a military strategy. Nonviolence is a way of winning a war. If you read the famous philosopher from China, Sun Tzu, who wrote The Ancient Art of War, he actually talks about the fact that the highest military art is to remove the desire of your opponent to fight. The only way you can win is to convince your opponent that they don't want to fight you. And a lot of people feel like the way to do that is through show of force. But especially if the people against you have all the weapons. If you come at them with your fist, they're just going to gun you down. So nonviolence is really the only way for the weaker party to win. And the way that the weaker party wins in a nonviolent action is by showing the stronger party that they are wrong. People always think that Martin Luther King was, just singing freedom songs and talking peace and love. And he was a very, very good person. And nonviolence was very deep in him. but it was also a strategy.
Mm.
And he applied it very intentionally. And people who were part of the nonviolent movement knew that they were risking their lives just as much as any soldier in any battle. But what it was that they made it impossible for the people arrayed against them to continue to believe that they were good people. And the system had continued because the people who were propagating them, the segregationists, they would convince themselves that they were doing the right thing and that the system was a good system and that it benefited everybody. And when they saw, when everybody's eyes was open to the brutality of it and what it took, and they realized that it was morally harmful to them to be a part of it, that's what changed that system.